trigonometric equation. How do we solve them? So we can break it down into steps. Here we have for find all 6 solutions to the following equation in A, where that our angle is between 300 minus 360 and 720 degrees. So we can break that solving those equations kind of in steps. At the end, I will explain why do we do that. So first of all, we looking at cast, meaning where is that positive value of sin. So the way cast is an anomic, but the way it works is that in this first quadrant, all of our trigonometric ratio are positive. Here only sin is positive, here only tan is positive, and here only cos is positive. Now, since the value of our sin of our angle is positive, therefore we are looking at those 2 quadrants. Then the next part, we are looking at reference angle. What does that mean? So we have to consider the fact that we have our angle in 2 different quadrants. So there will be one angle here and then one angle here. But what is our angle? How do we find that? So if I want to find the angle, what do? I take that sin to the other side of the equation. It becomes inverse, meaning to the power of -1. And then I put that in the calculator, press equal, and I have that is 30. So that means this angle here is 30 and this angle here is 30. However, when we are looking at the reference angle, we always count our angle from the positive side of the x-axis. So here, indeed, it will be 30. But here, this is how we're going to calculate our reference angle. Now, a straight line, all of that will be 180 minus the 30 here. So that leaves us with 150. So therefore, the 2 angles we are considering, the 2 reference angle is 30 and 150. In the next part, so then we consider something that is called general form, or we are looking at the fact, well, how many circles am I going to considering? Now, what do I mean by that? So we write our angle equal 30 plus 360n, and as well the second one, because the second angle was 150 plus 360n. 360, that's a full angle. And the reason why we have n here, because we are saying, well, is it 1 circle? Is it 2? Is it 3? Depending on what we are looking at. Now, in the next part, normally, if there was a number here in front of our angle, we will eliminate that number. But here we don't have a number, so we go to the next stage, which is to solve. So meaning to find that value. And how do we do that? We replace n with 0, we replace with 1, with 2, and so on. Now this example is very interesting because we have actually minus here. So what are we going to start is with n equal -1, because we are going back, we can say. Okay, so that means my first angle will be 30 plus 360, and instead of n we put -1, and when we put that in the calculator and we press equal, we get -330. So that's our first angle, and the same thing we are doing here, 150 plus 360 as well -1, and again in our calculator, and the second is 210. And then we go to the next part. So now we are considering, what about if we have no turns? So that will be simple enough, because that means if n is 0, that means our angle is 30. And the same here, 150 plus 360 multiplied by 0. So that will be just 250. And then we go again, n equal 1. And again, we replace that n with 1, and it will be 30 plus 360 multiplied by 1. And again, in our calculator, we get 390. And the same idea, 150 plus 360 multiplied by 1, and again in the calculator, and we get 510. Now, if we go, because you ask me, well, why is it minus 1, 0, and 1? Because that last part we are considering with the limits that are given to us, and that's at the limits. If I replace with n minus 2, I will cross the minus 360 mark. And then again here, if I go with n equal 2, I will replace, or I will cross over, sorry, the 720 marks. But why are we doing those steps? Let me a little bit explain that on with this function. What does that mean? So this is graph of this function that is given to us. So it is a sine function, as we can see it. This is my point 0, 0. And we can see that those are, let's just add. So here is one period, then this is a second one, and here is the third one. Now the period here is pi. How do I know that the period is pi? Because calculation of period is 2 pi divided by c, and c is the number that stands beside a. And the number that stands beside a here is 1. Therefore, the period is 2 pi. That means 360 degrees. So 360, 360 degrees. So this value here, that is when y is equal a half, because our function is y sin of a. That's what we have. And we are told to find this value of a, this value of our x, when y is a half. So this is when y is a half, and we can see that it will cut at these values of x. If I am considering 360 and 360, so here we are closing at x being 720, and here 360 on the other side, so therefore minus 360. That's the reason why we have 6 values of x, and that's the reason why in this place we are saying, well, how many of them? That's the reason why we are saying 360n. So hopefully that helps you to understand why are we taking those steps.